Hello everybody, thank you for joining us today as we honour and farewell the life of Patrick Meckenstock. He was a man who was always his own man. He was a hard-drinking, hard-smoking man who loved the army with passion and who often described himself as this little black duck. Hence, a little black duck being on his casket today. Fair to say that Paddy's had more comebacks from the brink of death than Lazarus, but finally, Paddy used up his last life, and here we find ourselves today. My name is Patrick James, and along with Oakwood Funerals, it really is our privilege that we're here to guide you through today's farewell. But as we come together in this chapel and online, we want to make this time all about Paddy. So, with that in mind, would you check that your mobile phones are switched off or turned to silent, and that way we can give him respect today. And let me offer a very warm welcome to those who join us online too. We live in a world that's quite crazy at the moment, although slightly less crazy in Australia as of today. We know you couldn't be here, but I just wanted to reassure you that even though you're not physically here, your love and support is not diminished in any way at all. In fact, it is honoured and appreciated. Thank you. Let me begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are so privileged to meet today, the proud members of the Pinnaroo Nation, and on our behalf, I pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Now, we're going to hear some eulogies in just a moment, but in truth, the most important thing for Paddy about today was make certain everybody gets a bloody drink. Well, that will be happening a little bit later at the Greenwood Tavern. But first we'll revive some of the memories he shared with a man you could definitely call a character. I suspect there will be no gilding of the lily in this service either, but that will also mean that we'll be talking about the man you knew so well. His parents were Leah and Carl Meckenstock, and Paddy was the second youngest of 8 children. His siblings, Carl, George, Mary, Noel, Barbara, Greta, Patrick, Paddy, and then Brian. But of course, you think about it, Paddy arrived at a really difficult time in Queensland, with the shadow of World War II hanging over the world. It would sometimes seem, wouldn't it, as though Paddy was waging his own war against the world, something that certainly didn't change throughout his life. He left home very young, and after a series of jobs, he found his home in the army. Having married, he produced 2 children, Shane and Katrina, his daughter Paddy, grandson Brandon, who now has his own adorable little boy. Let me tell you, edible plus. His name is Archer, and he's also a character, a different sort of character to his grandfather, I might add. So that's Paddy's great-grandchild. So let me invite now his daughter Kitty to come, and Katrina to come and share her eulogy for her father now.
Good morning. I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Wajak people of the Pinnaroo Nation. Thank you all for coming out to farewell Patrick Meckenstock, though most of you know him as Paddy, or Uncle Randy, or Auntie Pat, or Tars, Grandma Mum, or Pastor perhaps. To me, it was just Dad. Dad gave very specific instructions for his funeral in relation to eulogies. He didn't want anything untrue to be said about him. I don't want no bastard saying I was a great bloke or a good farmer. I wasn't. I don't want no bullshit. So, Paddy was a bad-tempered, foul-mouthed, rigid, arbitrary, proud, hard-working, beer-drinking, heavy-smoking, ex-digger, Vietnam vet, and a grumpy old bastard. He was also my father. My parents divorced in the early 70s, and he was devastated by the nasty divorce and the brutal custody hearings. It was a time when shared access wasn't a thing, and we had very little contact. I remember when I was about 7, I was at a train station, meeting the echo in Brisbane. A bunch of army soldiers were on the station. I searched their faces hoping to find him. And I asked my grandparents children, but I was always fascinated by who he may have been. I grew up in Queensland on the Gold Coast and Dad visited a few times. My grandmother would always drag him to the yacht club and introduce him as my son-in-law, to which Dad would reply, "Ex!" There was always a cloud over those visits, but we really tried. We tried to connect with phone calls on Saturday nights for some time, and in '84, my grandparents received a call saying Dad had a heart attack and I needed to say goodbye. Hours later, I was on a plane to Perth. I landed late at night in a vast empty airport on the other side of the country. I was tired, scared, didn't know where to go or what to do. And there was Dad, drunk as a skunk, waiting for me at the bar with my Uncle Noel, who he introduced as Ramsbottom. I didn't know what a Ramsbottom was then, and I don't know what it is now. He had some pretty special names for people. I can have a few. In the family, there were Sis, Chook, the old girl, and Bartas. His brother and best friend, Brian, was the boy. Young Raymond was always held very dear. He never had a bad word to say, which is a very rare thing. His long-standing and vigilant neighbour was Swervin Mervyn, and one of his greatest supports and friends was Phil Dill. Engelbert Humperdinck, one of Dad's favourites, was Engelwart Longmondick. Peter Cosgrove, sir, you were bugger-ass. A few years ago, I was putting my Auntie Greet's phone number into my phone, and she spelled her name, and Dad said, "What are you talking about? That's not your name. Your name's Greta." "No, Patty, my name's Greet." "Since when?" "It's always been Greet, Patty." Patty didn't get the education he deserved. He was a terrible writer and even worse speller, but he enjoyed an interesting relationship with the Aussie language. A few special phrases come to mind. I remember when he was describing our Doberman, Zap, he'd say, "She's black as a doctor's guts." When describing a de facto relationship, it was, "He's shacked up with some shield." Referring to a pregnant woman was, "She's got a guts full of arms and legs." Going to the pub was drinking piss and telling lies. Being drunk, a gut full of piss and bad manners. And when greeted by my dad, it was always, "Hey, Aaron." Patty didn't get the opportunity to follow his dream of being a jockey, but he'd never know it when he'd whip his own thigh with an invisible crop, screaming, "Come on, you bastard," willing on his punt in the heat of the race. He loved to punt, though his greatest win was running from favourite numbers. He loved fishing. I remember him dropping pots on the mud crabs with my granddad and dancing around the Bertram being chased by the huge nippers. He loved a fishing trip and enjoyed many over the years. I found a photo of Dad, and the biggest smile I'd ever seen on his face is being featured today, and I'm so grateful to have that. He loved John Wayne, the Duke. He named his firstborn Shane in tribute. He loved his music and he loved it loud. Both of his neighbours quite did, but Dad would sing his heart out and march up and down the hallway having an absolute ball. He loved a Chinese meal. He would always order long soup, combination king prawns and filet. He wouldn't accept that it was racist to say that, because to him it was funny. Dad was another man. He could iron sandwich trousers like no one I've ever known, and his shoes were spit polished into a mirror finish. He was steadfast in his commitment and loyalty as an Australian soldier. He did his finest moments in the army, and he was very proud of his service. Of course, he wasn't particularly well behaved. His promotion to warrant officer was started by attitudinal issues. I'm told that if someone came to him with a problem, he'd respond with, "Well, what the fuck do you want me to do about it?" He got his comeuppance a couple of times. He told me specifically that he wasn't so much a jungle fox, but more a jungle mongrel. According to Dad, he was jailed 3 times. I suspect there was more. He got 100 hours for not having a haircut. He got 168 hours for telling the RSM to get fucked. He received a reprimand and was made to sleep in a tent with barbed wire around it for getting back. I'd like to make a special mention of one comment in particular. Alan McNulty. He held you in high regard. He had a very deep respect for you and Mary. Now you've supported him staunchly for many, many years. Thank you for taking care of him, particularly when I couldn't. I've heard lots of stories about Dad over the last couple of weeks, and we're really looking forward to hearing more. So please share your stories with us. We'd love to get to know him better. To all of you, thank you so much for being here and honouring his memory, for knowing him and for caring for him. Dad would have loved to know that he meant so much to so many.
So as we know, Paddy's military service was incredibly important to him, and for his efforts, he was awarded the Australian Active Service Medal 1945 to 75 with a class, Vietnam Medal, Defence Force Service Medal with first class, Australian Defence Medal, Vietnamese Campaign Medal, the Infantry Combat Badge, and returned from Active Service Badge. Now the aforementioned Alan McNulty, everybody knows him as from the 5th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, is going to come and share some of the stories he can share in the chapel, speak of Paddy's military service. Thanks, Mac.
The reason I'm talking like this is most people here, that's the army people I'm talking about, they've got hearing aids and they're sitting at home in their drawer. So they won't hear a thing this morning. So good on you, Bruce. Before we start the service, I would just like to thank everyone here that come up from down south, and the members and their wives for turning up today to farewell our good friend Patrick Meckenstock. I would also like to thank our commanding officer, Brigadier Colin Khan, and his wife Susan, and Tim Guinness-Donnelly, who are watching this in Canberra on a live feed up there. Thank you. And to our platoon commander, Colonel John James, who is in Melbourne with his wife Sue, are listening to this, and also to lots of his mates from interstate who would have come here today, but because of the covert. And that's Snowy Morris, Digger Bell, Tweed Harris, and the rest of 3 platoon. So we realise why you can't come, fellas, but I'm sure at least you're watching this live feed and pay your respects to Paddy. Patrick Meckenstock, as we know, we called him Lazarus. The reason we called him Lazarus, he's died 15 times and we've buried him. This is the 15th time. That sash that is on the casket, I have had it at home for the last 15 times that Paddy died. I get a call from either the parents or the hospital and say, if you want to see Paddy, you better come in straight away. He's only got 3 or 4 days to live. I would go into the hospital, pay my respects to Paddy, go home, send an email out to all his friends from interstate and overseas saying Paddy's got 3 or 4 days to go. I'd ring Paddy 3 or 4 days later, no answer. I'd ring again and he'd say, where are you? I'd say, where are you, Paddy? He'd say, I'm shopping. Where do you effing think I would be? I said, so that was the end of sending any emails out to our friends because they either said I was half whacked with grog or on drugs, sending all these emails out. Marion, my wife, and myself both knew Paddy when we were in Queensland. I was in 2 Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, and Marion was in the Army and she was serving at One Camp Hospital in Yeronga. We both got to know Paddy well, Marion probably very well because that was the start of his hospital visits. He was always in hospital and he was always at the RAP with something wrong with him. We had some great times up there in Queensland. Once we went up to Tin Can Bay in Queensland, most of the army blokes here will know where that is, and we had to go up and put signs up around the live firing range to warn everyone there was live firing going on. We got some Zodiac boats because there was a lot of water around that area, and we'd go around and put these signs around warning everyone. It was a very slow process, and then the officer commanding, who then was Major Colin Khan, who later became the CO of 5RAO when we went to South Vietnam, and the CSM was John Vagg, known as Sandshoes, and he became the RSM of 5RAO when we went to South Vietnam. They both ordered me to go into town and to hire some dinghies to speed up the job and get it done. I went into town, we hired these dinghies, come back, and we were doing well. The signposts were going up fairly quickly. At the end of the day, we decided to harbour up, and I said, does anyone know how to look after boats, make sure they're anchored properly? Paddy put his hand up and said, I'm an old sailor, I'll do it. I said, Paddy, okay, you're in charge. Next morning I get up early, I couldn't find any boats. I woke Paddy and said, you dickhead Paddy, where did you put these bloody boats? He said, just down there, can't you see them? I said, well, you come and show me. Down the water edge we go, yeah, we found them, they're all bloody sunk. They're all at the bottom of the bloody water. So I had to go into town and get the owner to come out and salvage the boats and give us a few ones. Paddy, we took him off that detail of making sure the boats were safe. Paddy, you go somewhere else. Excuse me, it's like that going here all the time. Yes. Okay. Another story Marion and I remember, Paddy and me and Marion and 2 of his mates used to go into Lisbon, the Treasury Hotel, to have a meal. They'd work out, one would go into the restaurant, order fish, sit down and try and eat it, and the other 2 would race into the restaurant and steal the fish off his plate, and then run outside and eat the fish in the garden up the road. They always ensured that the one that was sitting at the table got a free meal. Paddy was always volunteered to get a free bloody meal. Also, one of his jobs in the army, Paddy, was to look after the married quarters. And the wives here know that if you had a washing machine or refrigerator broke down, you went down to the headquarters, spoke to the sergeant there and said the washing machine doesn't work or whatever it was. One day, one of the wives went down and said, the washing machine doesn't work. And Paddy said, well, what do you want me to effing do? He said, get it fixed, you dickhead. She complained to the commanding officer, and Paddy lasted 2 days in that job. They said he wasn't suitable. He had to go somewhere else. Another instance, Paddy was working for MSS. He was one of the drivers collecting money for all the different locations and to take it back to MSS headquarters to get counted. Paddy got stopped on the road by the police. They breatharised Paddy. Paddy was over the limit. Paddy got arrested. They took the vehicle off him, took all the money off him, but Paddy wouldn't give up his gun. Paddy said, can I take it in the cells? They said, Paddy, we need that gun. We'll keep the money and we'll be your boss. Paddy didn't last long in that job either. Paddy served as one of my section commanders in 3 Platoon A Company, 5 RAL on the second tour from 1969 to 70. As we know all, Paddy was a cranky bloody soul sometimes, and he'd argue about different aspects of what you want him to do, but he normally comes to some sort of sense after he got threatened. He was a great leader for his men, and his men would have followed him anywhere, and some of those men are here today. Peter Armstrong, Max Stevenson. He always put his men first. On the 21st of August 1969, during Operation Camden, 3 Platoon and assault pioneers attacked an enemy bunker system which was defended by the 3 Battalion of 275 Regiment. We had 51 soldiers on the ground when we done that assault. After we'd done the first assault, we suffered 1 killed and 37 wounded out of 51. Not good odds. If the enemy had known how many people that were actually on the ground that couldn't defend the position, they would have overrun. There were 600 of those people waiting in that bunker system. Lucky they never realised how many we had. As we were nearly out of ammunition, we were calling, our platoon commander was calling, we needed urgent help. A Company with Major Red Sutton and the Company CSM Bob Armitage, who was here today at the front, basically ran from their position, and the usual way would be not to go on a track because it'd be booby trapped or they could be ambushed. They knew they had to get there in a hurry, and they deleted that and just come down that track at a great pace, and lucky for us, we were able to resupply us with ammunition, secure the area and evacuate the wounded. Paddy said to me that he didn't think he'd ever get out of that contact, and I said, neither did I, Paddy. Thank God for the air power on that day. As a section commander, Paddy found his job very wearing, particularly responsibility for those under his command. But he was also glad that no one lost their life under his command. So well done, Paddy. John James, our platoon commander on that day, who later got promoted to colonel and went on to command 5-7 RAR, was saying that in ratio, on that day we attacked, to attack a bunker system with 600 people defending it, we should have had at least 1,000 people instead of 51. So the odds weren't in our favour and we didn't do too good that day. I didn't see Paddy for many years later as our postings went all over Australia. And Paddy served in that many units which I didn't even know about. He served in 28 Infantry Battalion in 1959, Western Command Personnel Depot in 1960, 1st Recruit Training Battalion 1960, Infantry Centre 61, 3 Battalion Royal Australian Regiment 61, 2 Battalion Royal Australian Regiment 63, Demonstration Platoon at Canunga 1966, 1 Recruit Training Battalion 68, Infantry Centre 68, 7 Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, 5 Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, 5-7 Royal Australian Regiment, 2 Army Recruiting Unit, District Support Unit Wacoal, Headquarters 1 Div, 8-9 Battalion Royal Australian Regiment, and District Support Unit in Perth. So as you can see, Paddy had a very varied and service serving the country and serving all over Australia. As Paddy came back to Perth, he started having major health problems. He had problems with his heart, he had throat cancer, even though his doctor would say no smoking, Paddy, and Paddy would say, I'm not smoking. He said, well, you got nicotine on you? He said, yeah, I smoke cigars. And he thought that was all right. But no one would ever stop Paddy not having his Willem too. He had numerous stents he'd put in his body, and I don't think they could find any part of his body to put any more in. There was just that many in there. When his as I said, his health was really deteriorating, he spent a lot of time in hospital. The last count I had, he had been to Hollywood Hospital 86 times. 86. I used to say to him, "You're a tight ass, Paddy. Every time you go to hospital, it gets hot or cold, you don't want to turn the air conditioner on, so you go to the bloody hospital." He loved coming to 5RAR, all activities, Anzac Day, Christmas birthdays, birthdays, and he loved that beer and those cigars. I remember one day I said, "I'm coming over to see you, Paddy," and he said, "What for?" I said, "Well, if you die while I'm coming over, well, I'll take your friggin' car." I said, "No, I'm just coming to see how you are." He said, "Well, if you're coming over, can you stop at the supermarket and I normally get my Willem 2 cigars? Could you pick me up 10 boxes? I said, 10 boxes? I said, "How many's in them?" He said, "There's 10 in a packet." I went over to the shop and I said, "I want 10 packets of Willem 2, I think they're called." He said, "Are these for Paddy?" I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Well, he's the only one who can afford them." The 10 packets had cost me $495, which Paddy automatically gave him the money back as soon as I got there. He also loved getting picked up by Marion and myself and going to the casino. Have a beer, have a smoke. You take me outside for a smoke. I didn't smoke, but I'd take him outside, have a beer with him, and he'd come back in, play the machines. He didn't care if he won or lost. He just liked to get out of the house and have some fun because he was restricted what he could do. As the years went on, his health really declined, and we had to stop taking Paddy because he really couldn't walk, and it was very hard to get him into a vehicle. And he certainly missed that. To all his friends and family, Phil and Tucky and everyone here that looked after Paddy, I thank you from the 5RAR family for going out of your way to look after him. I also had an email from the CO of 5 Battalion, Brigadier Khan, who I mentioned, who's watching the live feed, sent his condolences over to the family and said he's sorry to see Paddy go. Paddy's probably in a better place by now. Paddy was one of the most strongest willed people I have ever known. He never complained to me about the pain or anything. Paddy would always say, "There's someone else worse off than me." And in conclusion, I say thank you, Paddy, for being such a loyal friend, for Marion and myself, and all the rest of the 5RAR family. Again, you're a bloody strong man, Paddy. So for now, Paddy, stand down. You served your country well. Your duty's done. Rest in peace, mate. We'll miss you. But we'll have a drink for you after. Thank you.
They shall not grow old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years can bear it. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we shall remember them.
We will remember them.
we